Most nights, my job is predictable. I tie my apron the same way. I check my section. I refill water glasses before anyone asks. At a restaurant like this, the goal is to disappear. You're there to make sure everything flows, not to be remembered. That night started the same way. It was a Friday, late fall. The dining room was full, the air warm with butter and wine, the low sound of conversations folding into each other. I'd already been on my feet for hours, moving between tables, smiling when required, keeping my voice steady. Then my manager stopped me near the service station. "Private table," he said. "Solo guest. Wants discretion. I need you on it." I asked who it was, mostly out of habit. He said the name. I didn't react. I just nodded and picked up a water pitcher. People like that came in often enough. Famous names, large checks. They were all the same at the table. Hungry, tired, human. He was seated in the corner, back to the wall, phone face down, posture slightly folded inward. No entourage, no assistant hovering. Just a man waiting for dinner. I introduced myself. He ordered red wine. I poured it. He barely looked up. Everything about it was normal. Until it wasn't. As I stepped back from the table, I noticed his wrist. His sleeve had pulled up just enough. It was small, easy to miss. A rose. Red, faded slightly. Thorns looping into an infinity shape. My hand tightened on the tray. I'd seen that tattoo every day of my life. My mother has it. Same wrist, same design, same placement. I remembered it from childhood, from mornings before school, from her reaching for my hand. I stood there a second too long. He noticed. "Is something wrong?" he asked. I should have walked away. That's what professionals do. But the words came out before I filtered them. "My mother has the same tattoo," I said. "Exactly the same." He went still, not startled, not confused, just paused. Then he asked a question that didn't belong in a restaurant. "What's her name?" I said it. The wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered against the table. For a moment, no one moved. Red spreading across white linen, a sharp sound echoing too long. He looked at me like I'd said something impossible. I cleaned the glass. I apologized. I did my job. He left before his food arrived. Later that night, after my shift, I texted my mother one simple question and didn't get an answer. I put my phone face down. At the time, I thought it was coincidence. I didn't know it was the first crack in a story that had been sealed for over 2 decades. And I didn't know that by the next morning, nothing about my family would feel simple again. Then I waited. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was upset, more because my mind wouldn't settle into its usual order. I kept replaying the moment at the table, the pause in his hand, the way his face changed before the glass even fell. At some point near dawn, I stopped trying. I got up, showered, and made coffee I barely drank. My mother was already awake when I arrived at the hospital later that morning. The oncology floor always smelled faintly of disinfectant and something sweet underneath, like plastic flowers. Machines hummed softly. Nurses moved with practiced calm. She smiled when she saw me. The smile was thinner these days, but it was still hers. "You're early," she said. "I couldn't sleep," I replied, taking the chair beside her bed. I adjusted her blanket the way I always did, smoothing it near her hands. We talked about small things first, her nausea, the new medication, a nurse who sang quietly while checking vitals. Ordinary details. Safe ground. Then I said his name. It was subtle, her reaction, but I noticed it. Her fingers stilled. Her eyes didn't leave my face. "Why are you asking about him?" she said. "He came into the restaurant last night," I said carefully. "He has a tattoo like yours." The color drained from her face. She didn't deny it. That told me everything before she spoke again. "He saw you?" she asked. "Yes." "And you told him my name?" I nodded. She closed her eyes, just for a second. When she opened them, there were tears already there. "I always wondered if this would happen," she said quietly. That was when the story started to unfold, not all at once, in pieces, pauses between sentences where she gathered herself. They'd met when she was young, before me, before everything hardened into routine and responsibility. They'd been serious, in love, the kind that feels private and absolute when you're inside it. Then life intervened, family illness, a return home she thought would be temporary. By the time she came back, he was gone. "I thought he chose someone else," she said, "and I was tired of searching." I didn't interrupt. I didn't fill the silence. I let her speak when she was ready. There was more she wasn't saying yet. I could feel it. Something waited. Before I could ask, my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. A man introduced himself calmly. He said he was calling on behalf of the guest from the night before. He asked if we could meet. I looked at my mother. She was watching me closely now. "He wants to see you," I said. She nodded slowly. "Then he's finally found us." The meeting didn't happen right away. There were logistics, calls, permissions, a quiet efficiency to it all that felt unfamiliar to my life. By the afternoon, he arrived at the hospital. He looked different in daylight, older, more fragile somehow. Not the man from the articles, not the one from the restaurant. They sat together for hours. I stayed outside. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. When he finally stepped into the hallway, his eyes were red. His posture had collapsed in on itself like something heavy had been removed and replaced with something heavier. He looked at me then, really looked, and asked a question that rearranged the room around us. "How old are you?" he said. When I answered, his face changed again. That was the moment the shape of my life began to shift. We walked to the cafeteria without speaking. He sat across from me, hands wrapped around a paper cup he didn't drink from. "There's something you need to know," he said. I nodded and waited. He didn't rush into it. That struck me first. He sat there, elbows resting lightly on the table, eyes fixed on the surface like he was aligning facts in the correct order before letting them exist out loud. Around us, trays slid, coffee machines hissed, people moved through the cafeteria with purpose. None of it seemed to reach him. "When is your birthday?" he asked. The question felt misplaced, almost gentle. "March 15th, I said. 2000. He nodded once, slow, deliberate, like he just confirmed something he already suspected. He didn't speak for several seconds after that. He breathed in through his nose, held it, then released it carefully. "Your mother told me something today," he said. "Something she never told me before." I waited. Silence felt like the right response. "When she went back to Europe," he continued, "she didn't know she was pregnant. She found out after she arrived." The words landed without force. Still, everything in me went quiet. He kept going, methodical. "She came back to New York months later, 7 months along. She went to my apartment. I had moved." I looked at him. "Moved where?" "Closer to work. I was starting a new job, a startup. I thought I was being responsible." His mouth tightened. "She looked for me for weeks. I never knew." I felt something shift then. Not emotion. Orientation. "You didn't know about me," I said. "No," he replied immediately. "If I had..." He stopped himself, tried again. "I didn't." I believed him. Not because of his money or his composure, because of the precision in how he spoke. There was no room in it for performance. "I changed my phone number when I moved," he said. "I left it with the landlord. I thought that was enough." "It wasn't," I said. "No," he agreed. "It wasn't." We sat with that. I noticed his hands were steady now. Whatever panic had brought him here had been replaced by focus. There's a process for this, he said finally. Not emotionally, practically. That was the first real sign of leverage. Step 1, he continued. We confirm. A paternity test. Not because I doubt your mother, because clarity matters. I nodded. That makes sense. Step 2, he said. We update medical records, family history, immediately. My chest tightened slightly at that. Not fear, awareness. Step 3, he added. We address your mother's care, not as charity, as responsibility. I didn't thank him. I didn't need to. I'm not asking you to call me anything, he said. I'm not asking for a relationship yet. Yet. But I won't proceed on assumptions, he said. Only facts. That word again. Facts. He slid a card across the table. No flourish, just paper. This is my attorney, he said, and my personal number. Use whichever makes sense. I picked up the card, looked at it once, put it in my wallet. I need to talk to my mother, I said. Of course, he replied. I'll be here. I stood. My legs felt steady. That surprised me. When I returned to my mother's room, she was awake, watching the door like she'd been waiting for my footsteps. She knew before I spoke. He told you, she said quietly. Yes, I replied. She reached for my hand. Her grip was weaker than it used to be, but certain. I was trying to protect you, she said. I know, I said. Are you angry? I thought about it, carefully. No, I said. I just need the full picture. She nodded, and then she began to tell me everything. I listened. Outside the room, I knew he was waiting, and for the first time, I understood that whatever came next wouldn't be chaos. It would be sequence. Then I waited. The next few days moved slowly on the surface and very quickly underneath. From the outside, nothing looked different. I still took the same train. I still sat in the same chair beside my mother's bed. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped. Paper cups of water were replaced before they were empty. But beneath that, things were being put into order. I didn't rush into anything. I didn't call him Dad. I didn't ask questions that belonged to later. I focused on sequence. Step 1 was confirmation. Not belief, not emotion. Confirmation. The test was arranged through his attorney. A private lab. Clear chain of custody. Results in writing. Dates, signatures, margins. Everything precise. I watched the nurse label the sample. I watched it leave the room. Then I let it go. Step 2 was documentation. Medical records were updated quietly. Family history added where there had been blanks. A cardiologist referral. Genetic markers reviewed. No speeches, just forms. Step 3 was capacity. He didn't offer money directly. That mattered. Instead, his attorney sent over options, facilities, specialists, clinical trials, all outlined, all conditional on consent. I read everything, twice. My mother watched me do it, her eyes calm but searching. You don't have to carry this alone, she said. I know, I replied, but I need to understand it. He visited every day after that, sometimes twice, always at the same hours. No grand entrances, no gifts. He sat. He listened. He held her hand when she reached for his. They spoke in fragments at first, memories that needed warming before they could be touched. Then longer stretches, stories that filled in the empty years. I stayed present, but not in the middle. This wasn't something I needed to manage, just witness. The results came back on a Tuesday morning. An envelope, plain, heavy in the way paper sometimes is. 99.9% probability. No exclamation points, no fanfare. Just a number and a conclusion. He didn't open it alone. He waited until we were all there. My mother sat upright in bed. I stood at her side. When he read it, he didn't cry. Not at first. He exhaled slowly and closed his eyes. "Okay," he said. Just that. Then he looked at me. "I won't disappear again," he said, calmly, as a statement, not a promise. That was the shift. After that, decisions moved faster. Transfers were arranged, debts itemized and cleared. I watched balances drop to zero on printed statements. No secrecy, no pressure. "You don't owe me gratitude," he said once. "This isn't generosity, it's correction." My mother started treatment at a new facility the following week. A private room. Nurses who introduced themselves by name. A doctor who explained things without rushing. The immunotherapy wasn't a miracle. It was a process. Slow. Monitored. Adjusted. And slowly, it worked. Not perfectly, but enough. Months later, the scans showed reduction. Not disappearance. Reduction. The word mattered. Life settled into something new. Not extravagant, just stable. He asked me to go back to school. Not insisted. Asked. He paid tuition directly, no transfers through me. I accepted on one condition. "I keep my job until the semester starts," I said. He nodded. Fair. We didn't try to make up for lost time. We just used the time we had. And that, I learned, is how you rebuild something real. Quietly. In order. The confrontation didn't happen the way people imagine those moments. There was no raised voice, no dramatic reveal. No one stormed out of a room. It happened on a Thursday afternoon in a small conference room at the treatment center. Neutral walls. A table too large for the number of people present. Paper cups of coffee going cold. It was my request. I asked for everyone to be there at once. My mother, him, his attorney, and a patient advocate from the hospital. Not because I expected conflict, but because clarity works better with witnesses. We sat down. I placed my notebook on the table and opened it to a clean page. "I want to define reality before we move forward," I said. My voice was steady. Not emotionally. Practically. No one interrupted. "First," I said, "we're not rewriting the past. There are no villains here, just mistiming and missing information." My mother nodded. He didn't look away. "Second," I continued, "support doesn't mean control, financial or otherwise." His attorney glanced at him. He nodded once. "Third," I said, "medical decisions remain with my mother. Always. No matter who pays." That one mattered. "I agree," he said immediately. I let the silence sit for a moment. Not as pressure, as confirmation. "I'm not asking for a role," I said. "I'm establishing boundaries so none of us have to guess later." The patient advocate smiled slightly. She understood what I was doing. He folded his hands on the table. "That's reasonable," he said, "and necessary." Then he added something I hadn't expected. "There's one boundary I need as well," he said, looking at me. "I don't want gratitude to become currency." I met his eyes. It won't. "I don't want decisions softened because of what I can provide," he said. "If I overstep, I want to be told." I wrote that down. "That goes both ways," I said. "If something doesn't sit right, I'll say it." "Good," he replied. The attorney cleared his throat and slid a document across the table. Not a contract, a summary. Medical coverage, educational support, housing stability. Each line item dated, scoped, and clearly labeled as optional. No leverage, no obligations attached. I read it carefully. "This works," I said. That was it. No tension to resolve, no apologies demanded, just alignment achieved. Later that evening, after everyone left, my mother reached for my hand. "You handled that well," she said. "I needed it to be clean," I replied. She smiled. You've always been like that. He walked me to the elevator afterward. We stood side by side, watching the numbers change. I don't want to rush you, he said, about anything. I know, I replied. The doors opened. I stepped inside. Before they closed, he spoke again. I'm here, he said. That's all. I nodded. As the elevator descended, I felt something settle. Not excitement, not relief. Structure. And for the first time since this began, I wasn't reacting to discovery. I was directing what came next. Then the doors opened, and I went back to my routine. The results didn't change our lives all at once. They adjusted them. Treatment continued on a schedule that became familiar. Tuesdays were infusion days. Thursdays were check-ins. I learned the rhythm of lab results and scan weeks, how hope and caution lived side by side without arguing. The immunotherapy did what it was supposed to do. Not dramatically, gradually. First, the nausea eased. Then the fatigue lifted enough that my mother could walk the hallway without stopping. Later, the scans showed what the doctor called measurable response. Tumors smaller, activity reduced. Not gone, but quieter. We didn't celebrate that word. We respected it. Paperwork followed, a lot of it. Transfers were finalized, bills were itemized and closed. I watched the last balance disappear on a printed statement and felt my shoulders drop for the first time in months. Not because of the money, because the math finally made sense. I went back to school in the spring. Same campus, different pace. I took fewer classes. I kept my mornings clear so I could be at the hospital when needed. No one argued with that plan. He didn't try to direct anything. He showed up. He asked before doing. When he wasn't sure, he waited. That mattered. My mother gained strength in small increments, enough to sit by the window, enough to comment on the weather, enough to argue with him about music in the car when he drove her to appointments. One afternoon, I walked in to find them laughing over something from years ago. I didn't ask what it was. I didn't need to. The proposal came quietly, no ring at first, no announcement. He asked her in the hospital room, late afternoon light slanting across the floor. I was there, but not in the center. She said yes, without hesitation, like the question had been waiting its turn. They married a month later. A short ceremony, a small chapel, a few chairs. The doctor came. A nurse stood in the back, smiling. No one rushed it. Afterward, we ate soup from paper bowls and talked about ordinary things. The world didn't stop. It didn't need to. Time passed, not endlessly, but generously. The cancer didn't disappear. It stabilized. Treatments continued. Adjustments were made. The doctors were honest. We were too. We moved carefully into a new normal. They bought a small house near the water, somewhere quiet. My mother always liked the sound of it. I visited when I could. Sometimes we didn't talk much. We watched the light change. We folded laundry. We cooked simple meals. One evening, sitting on the porch, I noticed their hands resting together. Left hands. The tattoos visible in the fading light. Older now. Softer. Still there. I realized then that nothing about this was a miracle. It was correction. Of missed information. Of assumptions. Of a story that had ended without knowing it wasn't finished. That night, back in my apartment, I washed a single mug and placed it upside down on the towel. Then I turned off the light. And for once, I slept through the night. Life settled into something steady after that. Not perfect, just owned. I moved apartments. Nothing fancy. Closer to campus. Fewer stairs. I organized my shelves, labeled folders, cleared out things I'd been carrying just in case. Routine became grounding instead of exhausting. On Sundays, I visited the house by the water when I could. Sometimes my mother felt strong enough to cook. Sometimes we ordered soup and ate quietly. Adrian, he asked me to call him that, never filled the silence unless it needed filling. That was something he learned too. They didn't talk about forever anymore. They talked about next week, the next scan, the next trip if her energy held. Love adjusted itself to reality and stayed. One afternoon, while helping my mother sort old papers, I found a folded envelope at the bottom of a drawer. A letter she'd written years ago but never sent. His name on the front. The address outdated. I put it back where I found it. Some things don't need reopening. They already led us where we needed to go. That evening, I walked alone along the water. The air was cool. The sound was constant. I thought about how easily lives diverge without anyone choosing it. How often people blame each other for timing, when timing is just indifferent. And I thought about how many stories like this never get corrected, because no one asks the quiet question. No one notices the small detail. No one pauses long enough to look. If you're listening to this and something about it feels familiar, maybe that pause is waiting for you too. Not to fix everything, just to see clearly. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story stayed with you, please like the video and subscribe. It helps this channel keep sharing real, grounded stories like this one. And I'd love to know, what city are you watching from? And what time is it right now? Share it in the comments. It makes this feel more human. 2 popular stories will be waiting for you next. Take care.